Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video. Myself, Jonathan MS Pearce. This is a Ukraine war breaking news update concerning an Axios article talking about the new peace deal that appears to be something concocted by the Russians and the Americans together without the Ukrainians. The classic talking about Ukraine without Ukraine. So we're back to that situation. And it looks like the Americans have lost patience and are going to dictate the peace deal. Essentially, one imagines is a very pro-Russian peace deal to the Ukrainians. And given Ukrainians' a vulnerable position at the moment in terms of their own domestic political situation with the corruption scandal, and given the battlefield situation, the Americans might feel quite bullish, as is mentioned in Axios, about slamming this down on the Ukrainian table and saying, you got to sign this. So before we get into that, please remember to like, subscribe, and share. If you already are subscribed to the channel, thank you very, very much. It all helps. Right, let's get into the long weeds. So here we have Timothy Snyder talking about the idea that we've heard this morning that Putin and Trump, or their emissaries, have been secretly consulting about a settlement to the war. Given the inherent traps of allowing an aggressor to decide the outcome of this war, here he tries to give a sense of how negotiations might actually work, but we're not going to dip into that. But it's the idea that there are these real issues that are inherent when you allow two countries that aren't one of the belligerents you've got one of them is a belligerent, Russia, the invader, but the invader is getting to dictate the future of Ukraine with a third party, the US. And this is supposed to be what I don't know. Is it supposed to be a just and lasting peace? Is that something the Americans really couldn't care about, or at least the Trump administration? So Axios reports Jack Blanchard and Dasha Burns a peace deal as soon as this week. Okay, so let's look at what they report. Peace in our time. So this is one way to distract from the Epstein files. The White House is on the brink of unveiling a major new peace agreement with Russia that officials say will finally bring the 3.5-year war with Ukraine to an end. A senior White House official tells Dasha they expect a framework for ending the conflict to be agreed by all parties by the end of this month, so less than a fortnight, and possibly as soon as this week. A few days. As soon as this week, yes, buckle up. So here's what we know so far. Things are moving fast. News broke last night via Politico's Paul McCleary and Jack Detch of a highly unusual trip to Kyiv today by Army Secretary Dan Driscoll, accompanied by 2 4-star generals and other senior US military officials. They're expected to meet with Ukrainian President Zelensky as well as other top Ukrainian figures as part of the tour. Now, Zelensky is in Ankara at the moment. He's meeting with Erdogan, Turkey's leader, about reinvigorating a peace deal. And it looks like there is this other peace deal that has been put together by the Americans that is being delivered to Kyiv, possibly today. Quote, we have some positions and signals from the US, is all that Zelensky would say. So what they're talking about, says Politico, last night, Axios' Barak Ravid revealed details of a secret peace plan hammered out directly between the White House and Moscow. Ravid reports top White House envoy Steve Witkoff, who, as we know, and this is me talking, is something of a pro-Russian American. He regurgitates Russian talking points. So he met for days of talks, 3 days of talks with Russian negotiator Kirill Dmitriev in Miami late last month. So Kirill Dmitriev is the Russian envoy who is a wily operator. You got Dmitriev and Witkoff meeting to discuss the future of Ukraine without Ukraine. And the 28-point peace plan is now on the table. Officials in the Trump administration told Dasha last night they are on the brink of a major breakthrough. This is big stuff. But here's the thing, say Politico, this new peace plan has seemingly no direct input from Ukraine, nor from America's allies, or indeed Ukraine's allies in Europe. And we have no sense of the details of what's been hammered out on the thorniest questions around Russia's siege of vast swathes of Ukrainian territory and the kidnapping of tens of thousands of Ukrainian children, or the security guarantees being offered to Ukraine in the aftermath. So none of this has been with recourse to speak to Ukraine or Europe. The mood inside the White House, they say, is bullish, and it seems the plan will be presented to Zelensky as a fait accompli. This is a done and dusted deal that Zelensky is expected to sign. Quote, What we are going to present to Ukraine is reasonable, the senior White House official tells Dasher. The Trump administration thinks Zelensky, under pressure both on the battlefield and on the home front, due to a burgeoning corruption scandal, will have to accept what's on offer. And as for the rest of Europe, we quote, and this is very, very telling, quote, we don't really care about the Europeans. It's about Ukraine accepting. So even though this is a war inside Europe, and the Europeans are no doubt going to be expected to pick up the security guarantees, whatever they are, apparently the Europeans aren't really considered at all in this negotiation. Well, it's not really a negotiation. It's a peace dictation coming from the United States and Russia. Here's how Dasher puts it on this morning's Playbook podcast following conversations with White House staff. Quote, they feel, so this is the Axios journalist here, saying they feel that Ukraine is in a position right now, given the corruption scandals that have been plaguing Zelensky, given where the battle lines are at this moment, that Ukraine is in a position where they feel they can get them to accept this deal. They say it's reasonable. It's something that is, they believe, going to be palatable to Ukraine. Now, that aside, the whole premise for peace negotiations previously has been Ukraine needs to be in a commanding position in order to negotiate, to have the best possible peace deal outcome for Ukraine. This is the exact opposite. This is, well, Ukraine are on their knees, as according to, I guess, the Americans here and Kirill Dmitriev. Ukraine are on their knees. Now's the time to force Ukraine to do a peace negotiation. So will this be the best one for Ukraine? Absolutely not. This is completely wrong-headed, but my goodness, it appears to be the approach of the White House, the Trump White House. We don't need to wait long to see if that's true, but this sounds ominous. Yep, I'd agree. It sounds ominous. Dmitriev, the Russian envoy, told Axios he's optimistic because, quote, we feel the Russian position is really being heard. Oh, finally, Russia's being heard by the United States. And what we want is going to be maximalist A, maximalist B, and maximalist C. The White House is listening to us. Steve Witkoff is hearing us. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. And right, now we've agreed this without Ukraine. Please go and take this to Ukraine, whack it on their desk and say that they absolutely should be signing this. Effectively, Ukraine is going to be forced to sign this, it sounds. And there's more. Dmitriev says a 28-point plan is more than just a ceasefire agreement. This, he says, is, I mean, this is, remember the Russian here. This, he says, is a proposal, quote, to address the Ukraine conflict, but also how to restore US-Russia ties. Oh, there you go. There you go. It's not about Ukraine. It's about US-Russia ties and address Russia's security concerns. It's actually a much broader framework, basically saying, how do we really bring finally lasting security to Europe, not just Ukraine? Oh my God, this makes me feel sick to the teeth. Which sounds like a conversation Europe might like to take part of, be a part of, says Politico. Yep. But anyway, take a step back. The Ukraine war is the most significant military conflict in decades, a major European land war that has upended Western security assumptions and in which an estimated 1.5 million people have been injured or killed. And if these sides are saying, if what these sides are saying is borne out, we finally appear to be approaching an inflection point. It's a big moment. And it would also be a big moment for Donald Trump, who famously pledged to, on the campaign trail, to end the war on day one, but who's since admitted the task has been far harder than he expected. For a president hell-bent on landing himself a Nobel Peace Prize, a peace agreement in Ukraine, perhaps any peace agreement in Ukraine, is coveted indeed. So what happens next? We need some details, and we need to hear Ukraine's response, obviously. Based on past statements, Zelensky is likely to push back hard on any aspects of a deal he deems unpalatable. Ukraine will not want to be bounced into giving away sovereign territory, but the pressure brought to bear will be intense. And if three sides can reach an agreement, that previously postponed Trump-Putin summit will surely follow. In the meantime, Russian President Vladimir Putin continues to bomb Ukrainian cities with scant regard for civilian lives. Witness the missile hit overnight on a residential block in Ternopil for a quick check-in on precisely how Russia is conducting this war. And by the way, I think there's now 25 dead as a result of that. Zelensky said dozens have been injured and 9 people killed. Well, not 25. Russia must be held accountable for its actions, he said. Okay, so That is what Axios is reporting. My position is that this is not good. So there has been a weakness, I guess, felt by the Americans and Russia in terms of Ukraine politically and militarily. And that's the moment they have chosen to force through a peace deal. This will only be to the benefit of Russia, since A, Russia is one of the architects of it, and B, because they're one of the architects of it, that means it will be to the benefit of Russia and not to Ukraine. Ukraine have not been involved, and they're having this land on their desk with the demand that they need to sign it. Now, I don't know what the ramifications will be, the consequences will be if Ukraine refuse. But this is definitely not good news for Ukraine. I mean, yeah, they say it's reasonable and palatable, but that's the Americans saying that on the basis that they've just concocted this with the Russians. None of this sounds good for Ukraine, and I do worry an awful lot. So this is potentially very bad news for Ukraine, although we are yet to see the details, and it may be actually that the US has fought hard on behalf of Ukraine with Kirill Dmitriev and the Russians to produce something that is indeed palatable to Ukraine. But I can't imagine that's the case, since they're just sitting down. Steve Witkoff, of all people, is sitting down with Kirill Dmitriev and imagining some scenario whereby peace will reign. Surely it's going to be to the benefit of Russia. So TLDR, not good news for Ukraine until I see data that suggests otherwise. I wait with bated breath, I guess. Let me know what you think, of course, and remember, please like, subscribe, and share if you have the time to do so. That would be really, truly appreciated. In the meantime, take care. Speak to you soon.